We trust the Lord's blessings for each and every one of you as we lift our hearts and together to praise our great God and to hear his word proclaimed.
You may be seated.
Look at the person to your right and left and raise your hand if you have a problem with that person. Yodia to me sounds like yodeling. Now, if you're not from Texas, you may not know what that is, but I can just hear that Yodia. So when Paul wrote, I urge Yodia and Kentucky. Anyway, just again, you won't read that in a commentary, but I like to give you some extra knowledge here. Now, in chapter 2, he talked about the need for humility as he wrote in verse 2, I urge Yodia and I urge Kentucky. And as in an orchestra, all the instruments play, and as they play as they should, it's a beautiful sound as they're in harmony together. However, if they don't play as they should, then the disharmony is hard to listen to, kind of like some of you earlier when we sang. Remember one church where it was really split almost down the middle between two families and their in-laws and their outlaws. That's pretty much the whole church. And as we talked about it, and as I shared with them, I finally got them to all agree on something. What they agreed on is they were mad at me, and so one guy stood up, and he was mad, and I wish he had not stood up, but he already stood up to talk, and he talked about how he and his wife were supposed to decorate at a church fellowship, and someone got there early and beat them to it, and he got his wife, they left the church, and they never came back. Now turn to the person on your left and say, you give me joy. Go ahead. Now, the other person, turn back to that person and say, don't talk during the sermon. Now, I had the privilege of growing up under many wonderful teachers in Sunday school, but there was one couple, I'll just say this, our nickname for them as children was Mr. and Mrs. Children Hater. Now, I'm not going to say why they did that. Let's just say that they earned that nickname. Now, I had a request about my gospel illusions. Actually, the request was not to do a gospel illusion. So as God allows these difficulties, look what happens. Now it's even prettier, as you see a lot more facets, and one more time. Again, even more pretty. The more you hit this, the more beautiful it is. And I believe, I won't keep hitting it. And then one day, God calls us to heaven, right? Okay. He was rejected. Okay, so some people bring joy to others when they enter the room. Other people bring joy to others when they leave the room. So which one are you? Like, what if we get lost in a forest? So I brought my flashlight. What if we run out of food? Well, I brought some candy. What if we had a flat tire? Well, I brought 2 pieces of bubble gum. I realized I'm a kid thinking this through. I had some coins that I brought, and that would help us with the hotel room in case Dad ran out of money. Well, that was my survival kit for just about any eventuality. Now, when I was a pastor, I thought about adapting that. What if church members fall asleep in my sermons? Actually, I thought about using it at seminary. You know, even right now, is anybody asleep? What if a bunch of deacons yell at me? So, I would like to end this with a bang, and that is to have you help me in this is a reggae jazz song. Oh wait, is Dr. Oz here? It's hard to see. Is he skipping my sermon? Okay, anyway, you know about the Asbury revival. And I've just read the pastor that preached the sermon when it began. He thought it was a real mediocre sermon. In fact, he texted his wife that it was just mediocre. And so I thought, wow, I can maybe help bring revival to Southwestern by preaching a mediocre sermon, all right? And then I thought, well, no, Dr. Oz beat me to it. But now, I've not done this before. I'll see how it works. I need some. Now, it may be easier to do your knees like that. Your part. Final exams are coming quickly, but the thought of studying makes you sickly. Okay, this needs some work. Okay. The TA says your term paper's inferior. You want to kick him in the posterior. Okay, ready? Okay, good. You're tired of me singing this song. It has gone on far too long. Don't worry, be careful. Okay, what I want you to remember is, don't worry, be careful. Let's go to the Lord in prayer.